In this part of A Mountain of Memories, we meet Mhairi, the central character in the historic strand that runs through the book. And this is set in 1904 in an area called Kinloch Beg, which means the Little Kinloch, and it's just before the village of Kinloch Leven starts to get built. So that's when it was and where, and now we meet Mhairi. Mhairi stretches her back to ease her aching muscles after being sat overlong doing the evening milking. This is the time of day she favours most, when she leads the cows to pasture in the small field on the lower slope of the moor. The beasts are frisky after delivering the load atween their legs, and it takes a little to coax them into their nighttime fold, where they may munch contentedly or rest as they choose till the morning milking. Strachleat, she pats the last long-haired rump afore placing the bars of the gate back in their slots, making safe the small herd. "In you go, girl," she whispers, remembering how Mother said to talk to the animals in English. She whispers lest her father hear her, for he has no taste for the different language. "Och, James," Mother had said to him, "there shall come a time when she must speak in the ears of those that know only that tongue." He shook his head and grumbled about it, but permitted Mhairi to learn. He himself was versed in both tongues, but he saw no need for a young girl to be, so Mhairi practices English vocabulary, speaking to the animals in her care. They seem to understand her meaning, no matter the language or the words. This evening they nuzzle against her as they pass into the enclosure. During daylight the herd roams free on the hillside, but of a winter's night her father likes them to rest closer to the farm, where their lowing soothes his sleep, and there's more shelter from the bite of bitter wind. It suits Mhairi well to see them there, for it takes less time to round them up for milking in the morning. It's good to walk up the hill from the farm at the end of a day fit to break a body's back, mucking out stables, pig pens and chicken coops, raking hay and setting out the feed. When farm and household duties are done and supper cooked and relished, when light is soft and dusky, she whistles Storm to her as she strolls to the end of father's fields and climbs the part-built stone wall, walking among sheep grazing and rabbits nibbling, until she feels the familiar stretch of calf muscle as she climbs. The old collie is always eager to join her and appears round the side of the barn when her whistle has bare left her lips. She pats his head. "Sinthu Balach," she says. "Good boy." For all he's a working dog, he yet loves to be petted a little and rubs against her leg for a step or two. More often than not, the reason she takes the walk is to round up a wayward sheep. They have a habit of nibbling their way into trouble without heed for the danger. Without heed for the danger they cause Mhairi in her quest to free their tangled matted wool from bramble bush or hawthorn branch, sometimes on the precipice of a waterfall or fast-running burn. Such stupid animals. Yet she calls them all by name and will search well after dark for one that has strayed. This has been her routine in all weathers for most of her 18 years. The chores have become heavier and the searches longer as she's grown stronger, but she welcomes the excuse to wander the hills around the farm, her preference to be in the fresh air with the collie rather than cooped up in the cottage with her ill-tempered father. To be fair, he's not always been ill-tempered. She has many happy memories of her life as a bairn, learning how to feed the hens or milk the cows, sitting by him on a wee stool he'd made for her, the stools growing as she did. But winters are hard in these parts, and her father grows weary of the struggle to keep them housed and fed, to build a store of wood to keep them warm through the long months when a white blanket covers tree and field, and there's not much else to do but huddle by the fire or go bend to bed of an evening. There's rent to be paid, and little to pay it with, and he often bemoans the fact he has no son to lend a hand on the farm. Though he must see by now Mhairi works as hard as any son, taking on the duties of a woman besides. Ah, if Mother had lasted a few more summers, perhaps he'd have reason to smile or offer a kind word as daylight dwindles. James Mhairi. It's been a fair while since his name suited, though it must have suited his great-grandfather, who was given it by the laird of his time. All her life, Mhairi has been free to wander for miles, up and down hill, across stream and moorland, coming and going without hindrance. Summer brings climbers aplenty in the Mamore Range that dominates the scenery around the farm, and it pleases Mhairi to share a word or two of English if she comes upon a group of lady hill walkers from time to time. Father thinks it ungenteel for ladies to don pantaloons and tweeds to go clambering over hillsides, but Mhairi admires them, for they're not brought up hardy as she, yet show the courage to tackle such challenging peaks. And besides, she sees the opportunity to practice their tongue. She knows herself to be a social creature by nature, though circumstance allows her little company, save her father's. Were she to live in a larger place, she would visit the sick and elderly, pass time with the young, and enjoy the company of all her neighbours. As things are, she talks to cattle and chickens, pigs and the collie, in English and in Gaelic, and is fair glad of their company, despite their lack of interest in conversation. This evening, quite early on her walk, she sees a group of 3 young women, their cheeks flushed from the efforts of their day, and their pace a little laboured as they head for the nearby lodge. "Fine evening," she greets them. "It is indeed," one of them says. "You speak English. We took you for a native, expecting you to speak Gaelic." The young woman pronounced the word the Irish way, Gaelic. So unable to help herself, Mhairi blurts out, "Yes, I do speak Gaelic, but I speak English too." "Have you walked far?" "She's barefoot, Izzy, and she has no rucksack," says a second young woman, her mouth turned down as she averts her eyes. "She must be local." "Do you live in these parts?" "Perhaps she serves at the lodge," suggests a third, turning away to look at the view. "I wonder she can survive in a place so remote from civilization," the second says, when Mhairi points back down the hill to her home, explaining in fluent English how she lives there with her father and they farm the land. "It's rather wild up here," the first who spoke tells her. "It's brave of you to walk up here alone and without walking boots. Of course, compared with continental ranges, Scottish mountains are modest in height, though there are plenty over the required 3,000 feet to be designated Munros. But walking and climbing on them can be treacherous. I assume you are aware of that." She nods sagely, knowing nothing of other mountain ranges, but aware of the peril hidden in these. "I thank you kindly for your concern, miss, but I do not intend to walk far this evening, for the sheep are accounted for." "You have no warm clothing," the young woman, Izzy, continues. "Yet the weather in these mountains is almost Arctic. I read that thick fog, strong winds, driving rain and freezing summit temperatures can thwart one's attempts to reach the top, even in summer. And yet you walk without climbing boots or provisions." Blessed with fine autumn conditions, Mhairi has been enjoying the scratch of the rough grass and heather on her feet, and her thick cotton dress and apron have served her well as covering. "Perhaps she doesn't feel the cold," another says. "They're different creatures up here, don't you know?" Turning to the third walker, she adds under her breath, "Barely human." Izzy has the grace to blush at the indelicacy of her friend. "Thankfully, we had decent conditions today and chose a more modest walk." Mhairi scarce can understand their speech, it being so fine and of a different sound than her mother taught, making her ashamed to realise perhaps her speech did not sound so fluent to their ears as to her own. As for winter climbs, she knows herself these are unwise and dangerous, for the weather is unpredictable, bringing ice and snow and poor visibility of a sudden, though the day may start out fair. Mhairi knows there are fatalities from time to time on these hills, and she wonders at the foolhardiness of those who set out ill-prepared in such season. She herself has no aspiration to climb much higher than this autumn evening, knowing the darkness will fall sudden and soon. Before they leave her, one of the ladies, the only one to speak directly to her and whom the others call Izzy, asks to take a photograph with the dog, producing a small handheld box-like camera from a bag hanging from her shoulder. "Do you think it might frighten her?" another says. "I will not be troubled by the taking of a photograph if it pleases you to have one," Mhairi says, motioning Storm to sit at her heel. She's seen the landowner and his son taking photographs up here before, though she's never had one of the boxes pointed straight at her. What should she do? Should she smile or hold a serious face? The very idea of a serious face makes her laugh, and click, the photograph is taken. "If we should pass this way again," Izzy says, "I shall show you the result. Such a pretty smile deserves to be seen, and such a fine fellow of a dog. Scotch collie?" "Thank you," Mhairi blushes. "A collie, yes." "I do wish we could capture the colour of your hair. It's glorious, and such curls." Mhairi's blush deepens, and she studies her feet. "It was delightful to meet you," Izzy says, offering her hand. She's the only one who takes the trouble to bid her farewell. The others are already walking away, and as she hears their talk as they pass, talk of Munros and Munro bagging, on past inquiry, Mhairi understands these are the higher peaks some hill walkers aim to climb, and tick them off the list they carry. She wonders how many she and Storm could claim, and how many times they've bagged them in all their lifetime up to now. It makes her smile, for she and Storm wander these hills with ease, with no thought for lists or tables, height or distance. Shaking loose her glorious hair, there is a new lightness in her step as she continues onward, pleased to have shared a moment or two with the ladies, and pleased to have had her photograph taken, though she doubts she'll ever see it. Pleased too to have shared her beloved hills with such ladies of class as to own a box camera, though with not so much class as to speak to her as their equal, which she surely is, since all men and women are equal in the sight of God. Perhaps they've yet to learn what she has always known.